when you take huge risk and give up a few years of your life to make a piece of art and then get nothing from it, it's, I think, one of the overriding themes of the book, which I certainly didn't know when I started writing it, was how traumatic it was for everyone. Like, you kind of think of it, not of that as, despite the copyright thing, sort of this amazing, joyous thing, which it was. And everyone who was involved with it, was very, very proud, and deservedly so, and continue to be associated with it. But I compare it to a magnificent car crash.
Welcome to Horror Movie Survival Guide, Disco Citizens, the podcast where gorehounds
and best friends Terry Gamble
and Julia Marchesi break down a different horror movie each week,
exploring a multitude of genres, subgenres,
and sub-subgenres,
classic and cult,
international
and underground flicks alike, determining which films are the goriest,
and offering up Horror Movie Survival Guide tips to help you
stay alive. Oh my goodness.
Horror Movie Survival Guide, welcome. I am Julia.
And I'm Terry. Julia, this is a guest we've had on more than once now. Is it thrice? Is this thrice?
It is.
Oh, I'm so excited.
I think he gets the honor for the most repeated guests. So, and well, it's a good thing. It's a good time.
Rightly so, because he keeps making things. That's why he gets to keep coming back. He keeps writing more stuff. He's written a new book we're very excited about. We have it's a New York Times best-selling author today who dives into the horror movie classic to examine his favorite film's importance to our history and culture and psychology. And this might be a favorite film of ours for reasons. Partially Devoured uses a frame-by-frame deep dive into Night of the Living Dead to produce a kaleidoscope cultural investigation of the film's importance and to examine the author's early life of rural isolation and local violence.
And we love nothing more than the details. So this, of course, appeals to us. So we are talking today to Daniel Kraus, who we talked to him about his novel Whalefall, which received a front cover review in the New York Times Book Review. And we have a film adaptation of that coming out this year, 2026. I'm so excited. With Guillermo del Toro. He also co-authored Shape of Water and Trollhunters.
Yes. And he also co-wrote, which we got to talk about one of the last times he was here, The Living Dead, and Pay the Piper with legendary filmmaker George A. Romero. Kraus has won the Bram Stoker Award, Scribe Award, 2 Odyssey Awards, and has appeared multiple times as the Library Guild Selections and more. Kraus's work has been translated into over 20 languages.
So his new book, Partially Devoured, will be released on March 11th. It is available now for pre-order. So this is our third time talking to him. Welcome back to Horror Movie Survival Guide. Hello, Daniel.
Yay.
Thank you. Yes, 3 times is not enough. I'll be back.
3 times the charm is what they say. So,
okay,
No, he'll keep writing more. I'm convinced. I'm convinced. Yes. You can't stop, won't stop.
That's for better or for worse. That's true.
Well, we had originally, the first thing we talked about was Living Dead, which is the book that you wrote with George A. Romero, and we were doing Horror X with the George A. Romero Foundation, and now we come back around to get even to more detail. I had so much fun reading this book, getting to know not only every tiny little detail about the film, but also about your life simultaneously. It was such a fun read. I had such a good time.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah. It was fun to write. It was fun to write.
It seems like it. Like the joy comes off the page for this one. So I think for those of you wanting an adventure and just something that I think fills you with life, talking about the dead, I think that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's probably one of 2 books maybe that I've ever written out of 30 that I could have written forever. Like they had to pry it out of my hands to the well, it's different because I'd never written a nonfiction book before. And so up to the last second, I kept adding things because I kept learning things.
Yeah.
It seemed like every day I'd learn some new little fact and I'd want to shove it into the book.
So I'm guessing there'll be an update later. Yeah.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I don't know how it's going to work, but if there is a chance for a revised edition, I already have things that I've learned since that I would love to put back in or put into the book.
So, I mean, this is such a huge undertaking to be able to really look at Night of the Living Dead in the scope of everything that it's really influenced since. How did you face it with a way to kind of corral it within lines that were manageable for you?
Yeah, it's one of those books that when you look at as a finished project, it looks impossible. Like how would one do this? And it's sort of this tangent machine of a book. So if you haven't read it, it does everything at once. It's like behind the scenes and what the movie means, what it meant then, what it means now, my history, my memoir, everything all sort of at once. And I guess the only way to begin something like that is out of kind of ignorance of what it's going to become. Because if I'd known what it'd become, I'd say there's no way anyone can do that. I think I wrote it. I started on a lark. I had a month where I had so much PR stuff for Whalefall that I was like, well, I'm not going to get any writing done this month, so I'm just going to call an audible on that, and just I will just do press, and that's it. But inevitably, I'd find myself with like, okay, I've got 2 hours before the next call or whatever, and so I had always wondered about writing something about Night of the Living Dead because it was so formative for me, that I just sat down and said, all right, I'm just going to write something. I didn't know if it was going to be an essay. I didn't know if it was going to be something to kill time for the single day that I was working on it. And so I just started the movie, and I went like, 1 second into it. And I was like, all right, so let's talk about the first second. So I started writing about the first second, and I was like, well, that was kind of fun. And I pressed play again, and I got a few more seconds into it. I had another thought. And so after I had 10 pages on the first 7 seconds of the movie or whatever it was, I was like, wow, I really have a lot to say about this.
Moment by moment.
I wonder how far I could do this, like how far I could take this kind of like super, super close analysis that is doing all sorts of different kinds of books all at once. And that I just crept through it, between other obligations. I would just be like, all right, now it's time for minute 37. And I would just start where I left off. And then when I'd finished, that's when I kind of looked at what I'd done, and I'd say, wow, this is a lot. But now I can see, now that I have a shape of this, I can see where I can start putting in more things. Mm-hmm. So then I entered in almost a new round of research, because almost the first draft was almost just things I knew, things I already knew. And my knowledge of the movie is pretty voluminous. But then I learned, as I really started buckling down on research and in directions that no one else had ever gone before, like very different kinds of research.
I picture you with always microfiche. That's how I picture you doing research.
Well, shockingly, there wasn't a single microfiche moment in this.
No, you're breaking our hearts.
I know. I was so ready for the microfiche, but these days with like newspapers.com and these other, all that stuff is also digitized. So I was able to find all the newspapers on these paid, you have to pay, but like these paid databases. Anyway, so for the revisions, the book probably got 50% larger again, because I was learning the really strange stuff. And so for maybe the first like 3 revisions, the book just got bigger and bigger, and stranger and stranger. And then after that, once we got into the normal things of like copy editing stuff, I was still finding, new like pages worth of new material to
wow.
stick in. So it's it's an ungainly thing to think about, but in practice, it was sort of layer by layer.
Mm-hmm. There's a quote from the beginning when you're talking about one of the very first shots in the film that I wanted to bring up, because I think it summarizes really well what the films are. It says, for a single electrifying instant, precisely 2 minutes into the film, the Le Mans disappears behind the flag. A magic trick all humans erase from the planet. This is, in fact, the message behind Romero's 6-film zombie cycle, and what the erasing of people and what it might mean for the world. And I was like, you have it, right? Like, it's so incredible to be able to look at this, because you would never have that moment if you weren't looking at it frame by frame.
Yeah,
and like,
exactly. Yeah, I've seen this thing, my estimate is 300 times, but you haven't seen it like I've seen it until you watch it second pause, and start to really analyze things.
Yeah.
And then you have these moments like this, where the car in the cemetery disappears for a second, not even a second, for a few frames. It just doesn't exist. It's blocked out entirely by this little American flag. So yeah, you start finding out. I saw, as I crept through the movie the first time, it really was the big pass through it that did it, where I was inching through the movie and saw all these things I'd never seen, and some things that I don't think anyone's ever seen.
I mean, it's
I love that. Yeah,
and just like
I was
one of
gonna.
the little
Mhm.
things that you mentioned is that I never understood that Johnny, Barbara, and Ben all have wedding rings, and I was like, whoa, hang on a
Hmm.
second, that totally threw me as well. It's like they have spouses, they don't say anything about them, they're just like, oh, okay. And I was like, it totally changed my way of thinking about them as well. It's such a
Totally. Yeah.
tiny little detail.
Me too. So like once you start noticing the rings, you're like, well, that's interesting. Uh, this whole movie goes by and no one references any spouses. Like
No.
it, that's weird.
Yeah,
Like if they're
it's not
married,
like I'm trying to get to my husband. There's none of that.
yeah,
It's
there's
just
no way Barbara wouldn't be talking about her husband constantly,
yeah.
Oh,
and she
yeah.
never mentions him once. So what does that mean?
Hmm.
So it's
Well.
yeah, little things like that. Little things like that start adding up and starting to make you see sometimes totally different angles on these people, or like, and some of them are dark. Like, what would be the only reason she wouldn't be talking about him, etc.
Where a zombie apocalypse is a better thing to
Yeah,
be in
right.
than with him.
Yeah,
Like,
Oof.
ooh,
yeah.
Oof.
Well said.
rough.
Yeah.
1960s housewife life. You never know. You
Hmm.
never know what the things lurking behind. That's
That's
terrifying.
right.
Ugh. Um, what was the biggest surprise for you? Like, I don't know, as far as the thing that was like the biggest aha that you had throughout
Oh
this
boy,
process.
it's tough.
Mhm.
Obviously tough because there's 1,000 of them.
Right.
I think I was the things that stuck with me the most and always excited me the most were the things that I would find out about Dwayne Jones.
Hmm.
Because
Mm.
Yeah.
really, there's so little known about him,
Mhm.
that that was like I was pursuing everything, every angle I could on the movie, but my pursuit of the Dwayne Jones stuff almost felt like its own thing. Like I was really, really passionate about finding out what Dwayne Jones did after Night. And because he mostly worked in theater, which is a much more ephemeral sort of art form, there just wasn't a record of it. If he had worked in films, we'd have all these movies, but his theater work, which was extensive and important, just didn't get documented. So it's in there. It's in the various newspaper archives, but you had to dig really deep. And one of the best places, the kind of the mother lode of information was from when he taught in his last few years of life at SUNY Westbury, yeah, SUNY Westbury, um, the student newspaper, which
Oh.
if you dug into the archives of the student newspaper, which aren't Googleable, uh, I really found some really wonderful things, and surprising things, and almost always impressive things about Dwayne Jones.
I wish I could have seen him on stage. Can you just imagine? I mean, the presence that he has bleeds through the film screen so palpably that I can imagine on stage he would have been mind blowing.
That's all true, and the few film roles he had, I think he maybe had 4 lead roles. They're all just incredible.
Hmm.
And one of the things I talk about some like lost work of his, and some of which I was able to find, but not all. And there's a indie movie about Malcolm X that he was in. I mean,
Oh,
What?
this is yeah, maybe you forgot that in the landslide of facts in this book, but I
no,
mentioned it
I
in the
know.
book.
Mhm.
But you said that there wasn't any film existing of that particular
No,
thing,
I
right?
couldn't. I found one mention of it, I think, in these archives, and I have to assume he played Malcolm X because they sort of have a physical similarity,
Yeah.
which is just mind blowing to me. But I have to assume we're never going to find it. I mean, nobody's looking for it for starters. But
That's
it's
you. That's your job.
tantalizing. Yeah, yeah, I guess it is.
Uh,
He
Next,
chuckles
finding all the
nervously.
full restorations, like, ha 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 ha. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's happening. I imagine there's a lot of projects that I feel like I don't know are going to stem from this now too. I feel.
Well, I do hope it'd be nice if it were the starting point for other
Hmm.
people to do who aren't me to do research.
Our
Like,
collective research project now that
Mhm.
we're all taking on with you. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And there's also a bit about how he was on a soap opera for a while, for a
Mhm.
year or two, and those were all those old kinetoscopes or whatever they were called were lost in a fire. Um, but there's opportunities out there for sure to to dig up, like maybe somewhere someone has that Malcolm X movie, which doesn't have the words Malcolm X in the title. I don't remember what they are offhand, but like I could see someone seeing the title in the book and saying, "Wait a minute, somewhere in a warehouse, I saw that title," and
Mhm.
never, no one's ever looked at it. And so hopefully there will be some opportunities like that.
I mean, that's the way the universe works and the internet works in a nice way when it kind
Yeah,
of can, everybody can work together, like you
The
said,
collective
like,
consciousness to
uh-huh,
find the things we really need.
uh-huh.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful we're gonna use it for good. I'm still optimistic. Is that bad?
it's not bad to be optimistic.
So let's talk about something that is so tiny and yet made such a big difference in this film, which is a copyright mark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So this is pretty well known that they forgot the little, what they call copyright bug. So the little C with a circle around it.
And it's always they forgot, right? There's no fingers that have ever
No,
been
we don't know.
pointed to. Okay.
It's probably someone at Walter Reed who purchased, who distributed the film. And then when they changed the title to Night of the Living Dead, they forgot to put the little symbol on there, which back in the day, when the sort of laws were wildly specific and draconian, uh, that was the whole ballgame. Like they didn't put that symbol on their movie, which meant they didn't own the movie, which is nuts. Um, and that led to everything, really. It leads to one of the reasons we all talk about it, although you could make an argument that it was such a great movie that it would have found its footing, but it definitely would not have led to half the things that are in the book, because how this movie got incorporated into culture and everyone's daily life is half the ways it was illegally used.
Yeah.
The way it was pirated constantly and bootlegged and remixed and remade and rebooted all without permission. Um, while you can go on, eBay or Etsy and buy thousands of unlicensed Night of the Living Dead products. Um, there's one viewpoint where that's quite bad for Image 10 and the people who made it. But on the other hand, we wouldn't have the sort of all pervasive cultural phenomenon that we have now. So it's a double-edged sword, sort of.
It's
But
in
it's
all of our DNA now. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, it's
yeah.
literally so
It
ubiquitous in culture.
and
Yeah.
it's hard to think about, because it's like you have to balance the way so many people who worked so hard on that movie got really screwed
Yeah.
with this other thing, which is people like me whose lives were utterly changed by it. And that maybe it would have happened, but probably wouldn't have happened if those people hadn't been screwed. So it's like something good came from something bad, and that's always a tricky thing to have a solid opinion about. Um, I don't know. I don't know the answer. There's no point to have an answer. It's just to reckon with it, was what this book does.
Yeah, it's a heavy load to take on, because you think of, yes, you are immortal and there is fame, but I think money is very often the illusion that
Mhm.
fame provides, and I think that it very often doesn't. But and of course I wish for a world where George Romero would have had all the money he ever wanted to make all the movies. I think I
Yeah.
read about all the ones that like slip through his fingers and these kind of things. It's heartbreaking, because you're like, he's so clearly talented. Why would you want to withhold that from him? But then,
Yeah.
you know, it's
It,
please go ahead.
entirely true. Although I would say that George was the one who did get a career from it.
Yeah.
Like he was and it makes sense. He was as they say, in the, I think maybe Russ Streiner, so like it's in the book, that he was the nerve center of the movie. So the movie is great because of George, definitely. But he at least got a career out of it.
Right.
And nobody else got anything. All they got
Right.
was their sort of lingering association with this movie, which is fine. I mean, maybe it's possible that George's talent just was like way, way higher than everyone else. It's very possible. But when you take huge risk and give up a few years of your life to make a piece of art and then get nothing from it, it's, I think, one of the overriding themes of the book, which I certainly didn't know when I started writing it, was how traumatic it was for everyone. Like, you kind
Mm,
of think of it, Night of that is, despite the copyright thing, sort of this amazing, joyous thing, which it was. And everyone who was involved with it, was very, very proud and deservedly so, and continue to be associated with it. Um, but I compare it to a magnificent car crash because it was like
yeah.
this incredible thing that happened, but like everyone staggered away from it with serious injuries and trauma. Some very, very serious. Some were just sort of embittered, and other people's lives were kind of ruined. So it's and friends lost and relationships destroyed, and um, it's partly the story of Night of the Living Dead is partly the most inspiring thing you've ever heard, and partially a tragedy.
I think that's you just described the world or life. I don't know. It's like the carnage of like creation. You know what I mean? Though it's like
Yeah,
there's we see the beautiful things in the end, but I feel like you've just described so many artistic endeavors. I
yeah,
feel like I've been a part of in my life as well too. You're like, wow. I even remember seeing like when I'm talking to one of my favorite actors about someone, I was like so excited and just like stars in my eyes, like, oh my God, you worked with so and so, and the look on his face when he talked about it, I was like, oh, I
yeah,
had a different experience of that project than you absolutely did. Like you, it
yeah,
was torture. I could tell they had an awful
yeah.
time with their co-star. Like I found out later, like what had really happened and what had really shaken down. And I'm grateful that they have the art, but I was like, at what cost? At what cost? Like
Right.
there's the emotional carnage behind them.
So there's so much in releasing a work of art that's like kind of sacrifice. Like
Mhm.
it, if it's a beloved piece of art anyway, like people get so much from it, and it's always a bit of a sacrifice because you'll never be able to see it like they see it. You'll always, and I talk about this with my own work. This is part of the book too. How like the compromises that it went into it. The relationships it strained. Who felt uncredited, who felt dismissed. The people who fell out over it. Um, so it's like it's much heavier for the creators, even when it's in a best case scenario where everyone was sort of financially, recuperated, and everyone sort of gets the proper credit. Even then, it's heavy.
Yeah, I think, every movie that you see has a story behind it, right? And most of those stories you'll never know. So getting to really get this deep dive into it, into not only the film itself, the filmmaking, what equipment they're using, how they're getting this equipment, but also and I think for me, one of the greatest connections is George Romero to Mr. Rogers, where you're like,
Mhm.
that's crazy. And yet without Mr. Rogers, we would have no Night of the Living Dead. How insane is that?
Yeah, yeah. The book is filled with those things where
Hmm.
it's like it's actually funny. To catch up for those who don't know this, George wanted to cast um, the woman who played Lady Aberlin in the Mister Rogers make believe neighborhood. Was that Kingdom of Make Believe? It was something like that.
Land of make believe, yeah.
Yeah, and so he wanted to cast her as Barbara, and Mister Rogers was like, "Please, please." I'm sure he said it in extremely Mister Rogers politeness way, but said, "Please don't do that. Please don't put Lady Aberlin in this flesh-eating movie." But what's funny is that later on, uh, once the Image 10 group split up sort of acrimoniously, um, Lady Aberlin, I'm forgetting her first name, forgetting all the names today. Um,
Barbara?
no,
I know.
no.
No.
Anyway, she was cast in one of their movies, one of the sort of splinter group movies that had like Russ Streiner and Jack Russo, in a small part in their movie. Um, and then later in Night Riders, George cast the woman from Romper Room. So
Ah.
there's this bizarre like preschool pipeline to get to George Romero's films, which is bizarre, and the book's just filled with that kind of strangeness.
That's hilarious. I'm sorry, that's great.
Is research something that you enjoy?
Oh yeah, yeah. I research a lot. Almost every novel that I do, I research a ton. And I didn't start that way. Like I didn't start loving research, but I think with my second book, I knew I had to do some research, and I just fell in love with it. Like I tend to, not only does it, you know, I tend to write in kind of a dense, detailed way. And I like the feeling of um, being omniscient. Like I like when somebody can read my work, and let's say it takes place on an aircraft carrier or something. You're like, wow, this guy knows everything about aircraft. I like that kind of feeling of being uh, totally in control of it. But best of all is that when I do research, it changes whatever I thought I was going to write about. And I learn all these new things, and it radically changes the characters I was planning and the plot points that I was going to do, and it replaces them with things that are much better.
Hmm. Well, we love research as well. This is a lot of why we do what we do. We are very academic about our movie watching and
Mhm.
taking notes, and there's a joy in finding out the little stories behind everything, I think.
Yeah, and this was different, obviously. Being a nonfiction book, it was, typically I don't have to worry too much about, you know, where I'm getting the research
Mm-hmm.
generally. I mean, I want it to be legitimate sources, but I don't have to I'm not writing a bibliography or
You're
anything.
not
I'm just
crediting. Yeah.
I don't have to
Yeah.
keep my links. I'm mostly using it for inspiration and some details. But with this, it was obviously a little different, where I had to be much more careful and couldn't use, like my last book about World War One. I couldn't read a bunch of stuff about it and then extrapolate from it and say, well, I'm going to have this happen because this might have happened if those other things happen. This I had to be like, well, I have to have a source. But this is not, and I should make this clear. This is not a book, and it was never intended to be, where I'm going and interviewing everyone that was involved with the movie. That's a different project. Most of the people involved in the movie, almost all of them, sadly, are gone. This was much more a book about taking everything that's ever been said previously and twining it together. And I found that much more interesting because The Land of the Living Dead has become such a cultural force that there's just all this myth and lore about it. And I'm less interested actually in the one truth, and more interested in the fact that there are often multiple truths.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that's what's interesting.
Hmm.
Um, you could write about all sorts of different movies, but they don't have that element generally, where it's just there's been so much said about it. So I found it really interesting. My favorite parts of the book is when I talk about something and I give different people's versions of it, because it just shows it. There's something very poignant about it, where you're like, wow, this guy thinks it went down this way for his
Mm-hmm.
reasons, and this person here has, for their own reasons, whether they're aware of it or not, really thinks it went down this other way. And what does that mean? And it's not really for me to say one way or the other, but it's it's interesting in the sense that human nature wins out every time, and it can't be agreement. And the fact that if you interview some people today about the movie, they're going to say one thing, and that thing is colored by 50 years of things that have passed.
Sure.
But to go see what they said back in 1971 when it was fresh,
Yeah.
and maybe even comparing that to what they say today, is also really fascinating,
Hmm.
because they were young and impetuous
Mm-hmm.
and maybe upset about something in a way that's kind of dulled today, and not quite as um, the trauma has lightened a little bit. It's just interesting. I just
Hmm.
find all this stuff was very unique to Night of the Living Dead.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm.
Go on,
And you
Jules.
talked about you credit your mom for introducing you to all of this. Your life changed, the path it's on. Talk about your rad mom watching horror movies with her.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure I saw movies before Night of the Living Dead. Um, I mean, Disney movies or cartoon movies or whatever, kids movies, but I don't remember them. Uh,
Take that,
I
Disney.
remember Night of the Living Dead when I saw it at age
Yeah.
5,
Yeah. That'll do
um,
it.
and kept watching it. So yeah, she was a horror fan. It wasn't like she was obsessed with Night of the Living Dead. It's just that it was always on because
Yeah.
of the aforementioned copyright reasons. Partially, it was also just it had been sold into a sort of a cable package. Um, so anyway, it was just always on. So that and Twilight Zone, and we just watched them a lot, and it became, it became the only real work of art that has been a through line through my life, and I think any really great work of art is going to grow old with you. Like
Mhm.
the movie I saw at age 5 is not the movie I saw when I was 12
Right.
or 25 or 45. It's like you learn, you understand things about the characters. You find your alliance shifting a little bit. Like
Yep.
somebody you originally hated, when you're older, you're like, well, I can understand sort of why they did that.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it was all my mom. She was a horror fan. Again, not like a fanatic, um, just liked it. Like she had I think she just would remember things that she saw and talk about them in a way that was intriguing. Like I remember her talking to me about Salem's Lot, and she would say things that would scare me. Like I remember Salem's Lot was going to be rerun on TV, the miniseries, the Toby
Mhm.
Hooper miniseries, and she was like referencing a scene. She was like, "If you're ever in your bedroom asleep and someone starts scratching at your window, don't let them in." And that was just scared the shit out of me. Like just her saying that, and it made me real curious about the movies. Scared of the movie, of course, a little
Of
scared
course.
to see it now, but and she I guess she had a good bead on me. Like she would never intentionally terrify one of her kids if she didn't think it was something that they would respond to ultimately in a positive way.
And the way that you describe in the book of her talking to you and talking about the movie with you while it's playing, kind of making fun and making light of it to make it a little more accessible for you. I think that's so kind. There's a kind way to bring people into horror movies, and I feel like that's a nice way to do it.
Yeah, she would make fun of Barbara like a lot of people do.
Oh,
Well, she deserves
well.
it.
Yeah. Oh, and that's part of the book too. Is I sort
Yeah,
of I kind of am a Barbara defender, but yeah, certainly George would agree with you. He couldn't stand how he portrayed Barbara in that movie. But yeah, it was that's another one of the great magic tricks about Night of the Living Dead is that depending on who you watch it with, it can be a comedy.
sure.
If you watch
Yeah.
it with a rowdy crowd or your
Yeah.
mom who's laughing, like there's a lot to enjoy and have a lot of fun with. But you can also watch it with another crowd and just be deadly silent, and be like, "Wow, this is a grim, serious film."
To be a fun one to do with a shadow cast. It's all pretty contained. Like I feel like
Mhm.
that would be really fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as the book goes into, like, I think because it's so contained, it has spawned all these other versions. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about the dozens of unofficial remakes,
Right.
but there's been musicals and plays. There's been an opera. The opera is really good, actually.
Ooh.
Um, so there's a section of the book that kind of goes into all these permutations of um, of Night of the Living Dead, and it's all because I think you know, it's so the characters are such archetypes in such a great way, and the location is so, as you said, contained that it really lends itself to being redone for a budget. It's one of the foundational movies where the horror is sort of just glimpsed,
Hmm.
and it's one of, it's a very popular kind of movie where there's a zombie apocalypse, but um, all you get to see of it is from what you can see out your own windows. Like
Yep.
it's a cool way to do something, and they pioneered it, and therefore it adapts extraordinarily well, which certainly helped all the people who wanted to, whether it was right of them or not to do it, wanted to make their own versions of it.
It's kind of the blueprint. We have a Sundance movie we're reviewing this next week too. That's very similar vibe.
Yeah.
That's like, yep, they found the little neighborhood, they found the little area they could film in, and then they can keep it really nicely contained.
Hmm.
But you really get to mine human nature and what happens when you're thrust upon with the people maybe that you don't want to be at the end of the world,
Yeah.
and
And that
what does
was
that mean, right?
so many Twilight Zones were like that too.
Oh
Like
yeah.
there were a lot of Twilight Zone episodes, which I was watching at the same time as a kid,
Hmm.
where you're seeing like the apocalypse through someone's bomb cellar
Or
or
cul-de-sac. Yeah.
a cul-de-sac. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
a classic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not really about whether it was Romero or Rod Serling. It's not really about the thing. It's not about that there's aliens that are landing on Maple Street. It's not really that there's zombies outside of this farmhouse. That's just a red herring in a way. That's just the thing that gets the people to reveal their true natures. It could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's so exciting about Night of the Living Dead. And, once the book goes into this too, Romero's start in the arts was really through theater, and Night of the Living Dead feels like a theater piece. Like,
Yes.
it's just people on one set.
People
Julia's
talking in
favorite
rooms.
thing.
It's my favorite.
Literally, you just described Julia's favorite thing. And Julia and I met on our way to theater school, so that makes sense too. That this would be, something that
Like
resonates with so many people.
The Breakfast Club or
Yeah.
My Dinner with Andre. Like, it's just people talking, and that's really what I want, and revealing their characters. But also, we got explosions, we got guts. Like, we're giving you everything you want to see, right? It's like all the razzle dazzle, as well as the hardcore societal message, which George always put into his films. I think that's what's so fun to watch it. Like, okay, Martin's about this, but what is Martin really about?
Exactly. Don't forget the helicopter. They also have a helicopter.
Oh
They do the
yeah,
helicopter,
very
you're right.
important.
Have you seen the sacred 3-hour black and white cut of Martin?
I have, yes.
Oh, so jealous. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Dying.
There are not many people who have. Yeah. I don't know when it'll be viewable, but it's really tremendous. Yeah.
Oh, I have the VHS right there.
Nice.
I'm jealous. Anyway, it's all right. It's all right. I'm gonna set that free. Oh my gosh. What else? What are you hoping people take away from this book? What do you want them to, I don't know, what's your message, I guess, in doing this?
It's tough to say. Like, it's for such a niche type of book that's obsessive about a very specific thing, it's not really necessarily for the obsessives, although it is also for them. The editor who bought this book, had never seen the movie.
Oh
And
wow.
there's plenty of people who have read it now who haven't seen the movie either, or saw it once, 20 years ago and don't remember it. It's sort of a truism in life, that, and art certainly, that the more specific you get, somehow the more universal it becomes. Like this, I had this with Whalefall, where Whalefall is extremely specific about a scuba diver who gets swallowed by a whale.
Yes.
And yet it became this thing to people where everyone heavily identified with it. Like, everyone was like, oh, this is just like my relationship with my dad or my mom. Or so I think Partially Devoured works in a similar way, where it seems like it would just be for the uber fan, but at the end of the day, I don't think you have to get very far into it to realize, oh, this is really just about art, and how any piece of art can affect the creators and the consumers of the art in very different ways, and how a piece of art can be really, really important to somebody, whether it's a song or an album or a painting or whatever, and how it can really change a person's life, despite how it was made.
Sure.
It's like, it kind of touches on, not specifically with Night of the Living Dead, but it is reminiscent of the discussion about art versus artist. Like, there were no bad people who made Night of the Living Dead, so that's moot in this case.
Thank goodness.
Yes, everyone's they were all good people, but like, it still gets to that idea that, like, art is the meeting. Like, once you release a song, like, or a book or whatever, like, it's not yours anymore. It might become the most important thing in the world to somebody else, regardless of what you intended from it.
Sure.
Regardless of what kind of person you are. Like, it's theirs now. It's half theirs. And you can't change that. That's the deal when you make art.
But that's the glory of cinema, I think, is that the three of us all watch Night of the Living Dead, and it's the same movie. And yet to the three of us, it's not the same movie, because we're all filtering it through our own ideas and life and whatnot. And so, with any side of art, I think that's the most beautiful thing, is that it creates discussion like this, because what Daniel sees and what Terry sees, what Julia sees, are not the same.
Yeah.
And it becomes this other thing, like you say, and to have it, to think of it, to have gone to to be a museum piece, and to have all of these, you say, like, in the book about how there's no way to kind of track its influence because
No.
it's so there's no way it's so
Yeah.
big, you know, and if you take Night of the Living Dead out of cinema, like what happens? Because there's
Yeah.
just, you know, the zombie genre doesn't exist or it does exist in a different way, and like it
Yeah.
just
It's a
blossoms into a thousand things.
it's a totally like alternative timeline.
Yeah,
It fully
It's like
is.
I
It's
can't imagine.
maybe we just live in like total post-apocalypse chaos
It was the only
without
thing
Night of the Living
saving
Dead.
us.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah, it
knows?
could
Honestly,
be.
it could be. Like, I wouldn't be surprised, you know, just the fabric of it. I can't even fathom like that. You saying that, I'm just like, yeah, that's the real butterfly effect of like, if you take out Night of the Living Dead,
Yeah, it's
I don't
interesting to
want to
think
know.
about. Like,
I don't want that world. I don't know. I don't want it. I don't want it.
yeah,
I don't want to think
yeah,
about it.
I know.
It's too
Well,
much.
well, you know, this is Horror Movie Survival Guide, and our whole gist of the show is how you survive horror films. And I feel like this was one, like, you know, how laid down so many rules of how zombies were
Hmm.
going to work. And as you mentioned in this, zombies run in this, use tools in this. There's all sorts of different things that, you know, get played down later, the use of ghouls and whatnot, and the Venus
Hmm.
probe. So there's like, for George to kind of just take what he wants out of it and move on to the next one, because you know Dawn and Day are so incredibly tremendous, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
really the same story. And but speaking of Dwayne Jones, and I would never want to replace Ken Foray and Dawn, but like if you were to have it be you know, further of his, even though we know that doesn't happen, we know the end of the movie, but like
Yeah.
that would have been really cool as well.
Yeah, definitely. And Duane was, you know, there's a very obscure newspaper article I found that's in the book where, you know, it expresses Duane being kind of hurt that George never called him again.
Hmm.
That, you
Oh,
know, and other actors in the movie felt the same, but Duane was at a different level than them. Like it's
Yeah.
possible the other actors weren't maybe quality, you know, high quality enough actors to be in like his bigger movies, but Duane certainly was.
Yeah.
And he was available, and you know, it is there is a ghost, and I chase that ghost throughout the book of some sort of broken relationship between George and Duane.
mm,
Nothing, I don't think hugely dramatic. I
right.
think both of them, neither of them were really confrontational people. So I don't think there was ever a blow up. I just feel like there was something subtle though, because Duane I think was hurt by not being called upon again.
Mhm.
I know George was after Duane died. You know, there's a one interview with him out there where he really breaks down in tears, which I've never seen from George before,
Mhm.
talking about Duane. And I think it's because he feels like he let him down, like he wasn't a good enough friend to him. So there's all sorts of feelings. You know, if you make a movie and it's a total flop, which is most movies, like you sort of move past it and everyone's going to go, but you make something that becomes an icon and everyone's going to have feelings about it. Like, why, you know, why did it change my life the way it did?
Sure.
There's so many other ways it could have gone.
But you're living, and now you're living with this one thing that hangs over you for your whole life, and maybe you want
Yes.
not to be known for that thing, right? And you would
Right.
like to
And
Mark
be known a
Hamill.
different
I'm sorry
way.
to keep thinking about Mark Hamill when you guys talk
Mark
about that.
Hamill.
Like listening to him, like you got to just hang out with him recently, Julie. Sat right by him at the Long Walk premiere, which is just comedy. You have the best picture ever with him. But like listening to him in interviews, I feel like he's
yeah.
like the alternate universe Dwayne Jones. Like if Dwayne had gone on, you know, and like had a whole like done a trilogy like Mark did,
Yeah.
and that's all you're known for. And then
Hmm.
years later, like he even is like, I've only watched it however many times I watched it, kids. Like he's like, I
Yeah.
don't know, you guys know all this lore, you know all this other stuff. Like it's yours. Like he's
Yeah.
so divorced from it. And I think about that a lot. So it's like,
It's,
yeah, there is that weird thing of like being you know, an albatross
yeah.
for you
It's
versus like an opportunity.
one of the cool things about Duane was he specifically, you know, there are people who were involved with the movie who rode that movie to the end.
Sure.
You
Yep.
know, I think, and are still doing it. Like Jack Russo is a great example, who's, you know, still alive and still doing well, and but you know is still sort of, you know, plumbing the depths of his connection to Night of the Living Dead, and who can blame him?
Sure.
If that's
But
your
Duane
calling
was,
card, that's your calling card, man. Yeah, for sure.
like, you don't, and this is another big point of the book, is you
Yeah.
don't get to choose why the world remembers you.
Right.
Yeah. Which is
And
hard for
Duane,
people to accept.
yeah, it's hard for any of us to accept. Yeah.
Mhm.
And Duane went the totally other way. Like he was like, I am not going to be defined as Ben in my life. And so he basically never talked about it, never talked about it. If you were someone who was like worked in his college with him or something, and you found out that he was Ben and I Live Dead, he would let you mention it once and never again. And this wasn't in the one long interview he ever gave with Tim Ferranti a few years before he died. He makes it very clear it's not because of any animosity with the movie. He's proud to be in it. He had a decent time making it. It's just that he didn't want to have that Mark Hamill effect. Like he wanted to be seen as a complete human being and not Ben. And so he went off and he forged that, a little less out of the limelight, but directing and acting in a million different stage productions that were hugely influential, especially for the Black community. He was a real hero, and he did that. Maybe one of the only ways he could do that was by divorcing himself from the most famous thing he would ever be identified for. There's something really interesting and commendable about that.
Definitely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sweet. What else we got, Julia? Anything else? Daniel? You what? I know you have more quotes here. I know you have a couple more quotes.
I mean,
Julia.
I always have quotes. I went through. I wrote
Julia
down all my
has
favorite quotes from
on our
the book.
spreadsheet. We got a spreadsheet, so I just want to make sure if there's anything else you want to make sure you ask Daniel before.
I feel like
we
we talked a lot about it, but I feel like I think the only thing I would like to leave us on is that you talk about it being very Don Quixote and very dream pie in the sky kind of thing, where this is American dream, right? Of these people who are not in Hollywood, they don't have any connections, but they're making something of themselves, and that's what's the most important thing to me about the film is to give you that kind of feeling that anybody can do this, and not only
the naivete of like, we're going to do it on $6,000, which I think is brilliant. I was like, oh God. Like, I don't know. It's beautiful. Yeah.
It is. Like, the book shows you behind the curtain, which is much rougher.
Yeah.
But that's, if you choose to read the book and learn about that stuff. If you don't, that's completely fine. That'll be most people. And it's like, it is beautiful. It's like, at the end of the day, what they've given us, not only a great piece of art, but like this piece of inspiration. Like, they are one of the quintessential, one of like the top 5, it's got to be, like, completely independent movies ever made, that had no right being amazing, and it was, and is one of the things still today I think people can look at and say, wow, really anyone from anywhere has a shot, because every once in a while it happens, and this was definitely one of those.
It's that hope. Never stop dreaming, right? Don't stop believing.
Oh God, Julia. Oh no. Sorry. Anyway, karaoke PTSD. Anyway, I love that. Yeah, I think this is a great book. I recommend it for any artist, like you just said there too. I think that it's really gets into the process and in the most beautiful way, and from an amazing artist like yourself, Daniel. Really wonderful to hear just the very candid stories about your life as well, interwoven. It's just a really personal book. I was like, oh, okay, we got a lot of you out of this one.
Yeah, it was. I didn't expect that either, really, but just found, it helped me parse out. If you write, and I don't write only in horror, but I write some horror. And anybody who does gets that question of like, why do you do this? Like, why do you do this stuff? And I never had a really good answer, but this book was almost like, it was like kind of a process of figuring it out, and I did sort of figure out, well, what was, especially around my like adolescent years, like what was it about horror that felt so important? Like, what was it doing for me that I needed at the time? So yeah, it was more personal than I expected, because I kept finding things out. I kept solving like problems. It was like a therapist, like it would say, I would start to figure out, oh, that's why I did that. That's what happened in my life that made me like this or that. Or, when I started making movies myself on VHS as a young teenager, one of the first ones I made was a remake of Night of the Living Dead. I played Johnny and my sister plays Barbara. And it's like, that's why I did that. Like, it's all the pieces started coming together, like in a way that you usually only see in movies about therapy, where it's like, oh, we've uncovered the traumatic thing that happened to you that makes everything else make sense.
Yeah.
This was kind of like that. Like, it did pull pieces together for me.
And you do mention that you have donated your papers that can be read at the University of Pittsburgh. If
Yeah.
anybody is willing to get into your adolescent brain, it's there.
That's right. I can't recommend it, but you can do it.
Well, we have the book coming out on March 11th, and then we have Whalefall, the film, coming out later this year. Tell us about, if there anything else you'd like to plug, or where people can find you.
I think the only other thing to plug would be, I've got my first sci-fi book called The Sixth Nick, N-I-K,
Ooh.
coming out in June of this year.
Ooh, that's exciting.
So it's real sci-fi with like planets and spaceships and all that, but it's
Nice.
also probably the most horrifying thing I've ever written. Like, it's very, very scary.
Oh, you've sold us.
Disturbing, very disturbing. And yeah, the Whalefall movie's out October 16th, I think. You'll find out.
We'll look for it in October. Yeah,
we're going to be there because we want to support you, because we've loved watching. You deserve all the success that you get, and all your books are so incredible written. There's so much passion behind it, and we're so happy to have you back on to talk about it. Of course,
anytime.
We appreciate you, Daniel. Thank you so much. You have a beautiful week, and you can find us all over the place. On the internets, folks. Like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful week. Yay!
Thank you for listening. Horror Movie Survival Guide is independently produced by Terry Gamble, Julia Marchesi, and Sierra Ryan. Hey, that's me. If you would like to support the show, find us on patreon.com/horror movie survival guide.